Stugotz was trending yesterday, and he asked me, what is that? Why is that happening? Why am I trending? And the reason is, and I'm always expressing, although probably not enough, my gratitude for the audience. The reason this show has the value that it has to DraftKings and to sponsors and to others is not necessarily just because of the number of people listening, but because of the loyalty and pride that our audience takes in listening so much, spending so much time listening. So thank you to all of you who on Spotify Wrapped were showing everybody I've listened to 80,000 minutes, or I saw somebody was like at 160,000 minutes, which is just, it's lunacy, the amount of time that some of you spend listening to this. And our gratitude is heartfelt from everyone except Stugotz, who doesn't know why he's trending yesterday.
Well, now that I know, thank you to everyone. We greatly appreciate it. Why wouldn't you and I be trending like the entire show, the Dan LeBatard Show with Stugotz? Why was it just me trending? I don't know what trending means. I don't know how to find it. I'm old. I have no idea. My wife said you're trending. I said, what does that mean? Like, I didn't know how to explain it to her.
Well, I don't really know how the trending algorithm works. It's targeted to certain people. It's like targeted to your location. Stugotz, I have no idea why you were trending either. I will say, if you're listening to the show for over 100,000 hours, you are padding, or minutes, you're padding your stats. There's no way we put out that many minutes of the show in the last year. You're going back 2 years ago just to look at me, Louie, with your Spotify Wrapped. That's too many minutes.
And good on you.
We appreciate those look at me Louis. We do not mock those.
I just don't think it's
loyal-
possible. I just don't think that there's. I mean, we do a lot of minutes of this show. 100,000 minutes. There's no way we've done
It's
that
more.
many
No,
shows.
I saw 160,000 minutes from somebody who won Moss tickets. Incidentally, as part of what we try to do to show you how grateful we are, December 10th, mosslebatard.com. We've got a lot planned for you. A lot of people are working crazy and tirelessly to make sure that you feel how touched we are and that you feel our touch on this Saturday, December 10th. Mike, your DJ set here, I heard yesterday with the stage and the production on some of the stuff they're doing around the bands, your DJ set is longer than the ones that you have done. How much work do you have to do on your DJ set? And how rusty are you during the pandemic and stuff? Because have you done very much of this since Gronk and Shaq and the Super Bowl party?
Not a lot, but I've been keeping myself active, taking up Coconut Grooves, and I played 3 points. So, but I am putting a lot of work into it because I'm challenging myself by learning a new style of DJing. I've done one disco set in my life, and I want to kind of combine what it is I think I do best, which is open format, with some of the other things that I do pretty well, which is deep house and disco, because of the challenge. And I've really enjoyed diving into tracks. Yeah, I went for 90 minutes because at 60 minutes, I'm just kind of just finding my way. And I want enough time to kind of change it if people aren't feeling it. It's always a weird group to play to, because it's a bunch of dudes that are sports fans, and I'm not really sure how into the Bee Gees they are.
But they love you. I mean,
yeah, but I'm not going to be doing like gimmicky sounds. Like I've tried to take a different approach for every one of these because I don't want it to get stale. And this is a more ambitious thing. This is far more challenging. It's a lot harder to mix tracks like this than it is to match deep house, for example. So I've been working hard on it, been fine-tuning it a little bit, been playing in my house, been trying to learn these tracks inside and out. I don't go in with like a set list, though, because you want to see how it vibes. I just want to get familiar with it because it's more like a vinyl spinning type of thing, and those guys are really talented, and I'm not a vinyl spinner, and that's kind of what I have to train myself to do in the next 2 weeks. But it's going to be fun. I just wanted to play jams that you can sing along to and have a good time, and disco tends to put a smile on everybody's face, so that's what I'm hoping to do, and I'm taking it seriously.
mosslebatard.com is where it is that you go if you want to buy tickets that are affordable. We will have more music than that. December 10th, Wynwood Marketplace is where it is that we're doing it. Chris Whittingham brought up something, Stugotz, that I think is in your wheelhouse.
okay.
He said that Joe Buck and Troy Aikman suggested that we need a new phrase besides "in the hunt."
Wow. Wow.
That In the Hunt.
I mean, I love In the Hunt. I got to be honest with
well,
you.
you've in the mix. In the Mix is the one that you like.
Yes.
But they are saying no more In the Hunt. Every team in football right now is in the hunt except for the Houston Texans.
They're out. Yeah.
That's it. But that's
no
it.
longer hunting.
But that is basically it. Everyone else is in the hunt because everyone in that league is 4-7,
including the cocaine-fueled Bears.
Yeah. And the Colts and the Steelers are obviously the feature game on Monday Night Football, and the only way to sell that game is to put the two of them as loose appendages on the In the Hunt graphic. And so they showed the standings coming out of commercial break, and Troy Aikman was like, I mean, come on, guys. Can by next week we have another name for In the Hunt? But it's almost standard that every NFL network that shows games puts that there, that it would almost be weird to see something else. It would be weird to kind of call it In the Mix or on the Precipice or something like that. It would be
On
kind
the Precipice is terrible.
No one wants that.
That's
Okay.
terrible. Yeah. And how about Troy Aikman come up with it? I mean, he's asking the audience to come up with it
No, he's
for
asking
him.
his production team.
Boy,
His production
that
team?
is-
I mean, I would never do that.
That is
I mean,
rich coming from old Look It Up.
What about OLI?
I like that. If they just put OLI on the screen, not
that's
even
not- but
outside
that's
looking in.
outside.
But
looking
that's
in?
not In the Hunt. That's outside looking in. You're not in the hunt. If
Yeah,
you're
but you can be
OLI.
outside looking in and still be in the hunt, Dan. It just means you're
Outside
not
looking into
yes.
the hunt.
Yes. You don't think it's
I
possible?
don't think that you can be. Put it on the poll, Whittingham. Can you be both outside looking in and in the hunt?
I follow Computer Cowboy on. He's from The Athletic. He puts out great
Yes, me
NFL
too.
tiers. A lot of charts.
I threatened to kick his robot algorithm's ass once. He
Yeah,
got
I mean,
mad at me.
I don't know what his stuff is, but it looks good. His charts and what he has them kind of tiered up. And the group we're talking about, he calls possibly frisky. Should we maybe
Not
put that?
bad.
It
Sounds
seems
a little
just
sensual.
yeah.
But Dan, the Patriots are 6-5 right now, and they're not in the playoffs. They're on the outside looking in, but they're still in the hunt. You know what I'm saying? Trying to convince you on this one. I mean, they're right there. They're not in, but they're right there.
But the thing about possibly frisky is if you go one step above that, is it ready to get it on? I don't understand
His
the
tiers
levels of
are there's
friskiness.
4 teams in Super Bowl or bust, and then the next tier is other contenders, and then he has possibly frisky. Dolphins are in other contenders right now.
Wow, you're excited.
Oh, man, if they were in Super Bowl or bust, though.
Stugotz has been arguing that the Dolphins are too good.
I mean, I expect them to score. The offense is too good. And it's weird to see them be this good because we haven't seen them be this good in so long. But when you're supposed to blow out the Texans at home and you blow them out at home, and the other thing that it's I can't believe I'm saying this. When they don't score on offense, I am shocked they don't score on offense. And they've gone from this team that I've mocked pretty much my entire career to being the best team. I feel like the most exciting team in the NFL. I mean, it's so fun to watch them. The offense is near perfect.
You say that you expect them to score every time, and I am in the same place of being surprised every time there is an incompletion. And it is a weird, disorienting
Crazy.
way after you've watched 20 years of football that's totally constipated, that is somewhere beyond impotent, to see it free-flowing like this. But Jessica, you brought up the phrase frisky, and the only time I've ever heard that phrase was the father of Richie Cunningham on Happy Days, an old man who, when he wanted to be sensual on American television in the 70s, dangerous and edgy, when he was talking about having sex with his wife, it's the only time I've heard someone actively use the phrase frisky. So you're right that it is a sensual phrase. It's just
Thank you.
It's
I feel like I
50
got
years
no
old.
support for that. When I think of frisky, I think of cat food, and I think of old people getting a little horny.
Are you talking about Tom Bosley?
I am. Is it Bosley? Yeah, I think that's his name.
This
Mr.
reference
C.
is so
Yeah.
old.
I mean,
That's the
Jess,
only time I've heard it, Jessica.
you've done Columbo, okay?
Love
So
Columbo.
be careful with calling our references old. However, I mean, you guys we say frisky all the time in sports context. I feel like that's not one that's that crazy. It's not purely a sex based reference. It's we hear sports teams all the time described as frisky.
Do we?
It's sex based to me.
I'm telling you,
Frisky.
Frisky,
Let's
really?
get
I think
frisky.
of a little kitty cat.
It's because of the food.
Little frisky kitty cat.
I'm
That sounds sexy.
telling you, if you say it that way,
Little frisky kitty cat.
John Kitna.
Kitty cat.
Whoa, don't. Oh, boy, that's loaded.
I
Why'd you
was
throw
talking
that
about
out
his
there?
dad because yesterday on the show, Stugotz, when we mentioned John Kitna,
That's the worst
senior.
That's the
senior,
worst transition ever.
Yeah, but Dan's explaining. I called John Kitna Senior.
Kitty
I called
cat.
him Kitty Cat. I've
All
been
right.
calling him Kitty Cat my
I see.
entire life.
We
Yeah.
reverse engineered a nickname. I see what happened here, but now we have to mention it.
You weren't here yesterday, and we were talking about John Kitna Senior, not John Kitna Junior.
No, we did. I was here when we talked about John Kitna in terms of like having a year or a couple of years. It was, kind of tough to decide.
But somehow he came up yesterday, and I blurted out Kitty Cat.
Yeah, he
And-
also came up yesterday evening too.
well, Senior.
Yeah, well, his son got arrested.
I know.
Yeah.
Moving on. Awkwardly as possible. Did we come up with In the Hunt and a replacement? Are we setting it for the audience to come up with something better than In the Hunt? Because on the periphery or on the precipice is maximum.
It's such a Whittingham term.
It's maximum Whittingham, but I don't believe that it's helpful here in any way.
I also think precipice sounds sexual.
A little frisky.
Yeah.
Precipice?
Yeah.
Is it the nature of how the word sounds? Because there's nothing about the word or any context it's used in
I don't
that
know.
is sexual whatsoever.
Say it slowly.
Precipice.
Yeah, man, that's a sex word.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a word. If anyone uttered it around or in or around sex, it'd be a turn off.
Probably what Whitty does say when he's on the precipice.
I'm on the precipice. Yuck.
Totally says that.
At the height of letting go of any.
I'm on the precipice. I have arrived.
Oh, you had it in the act. I had it as he walks into the room before.
No,
I am on the
no.
precipice of having sex.
No, as it's happening. All of it, yes, in a very broadcaster
We're
voice.
entering the threshold.
He pulls out a microphone.
He does pull out a mic.
Yeah.
One of those
feeling
soccer
frisky.
mics with the
Completion.
fini.
Gives a
It's
count.
the true story of a bear that's being made into a movie that went on a rampage after ingesting some cocaine. But the more interesting part to you as a fan of the show will be that when discussing it, Stugotz, we believe, had his phlegmiest moment in the history of the show. And it sounded, yes, it went beyond, we think, I'm with Lewis on this one. You tell us whether you think this is worse than I'm with Lewis on this one.
Ron McGill would still tell us not to run. It was a cocaine-fueled bear. So
Oh, Jesus.
Yep, yeah. It's an entire sentence.
The look
yeah.
on Mike's face when he heard that.
Recoiled. He recoiled in horror as if he was being attacked by a cocaine-fueled bear.
Ron McGill would still tell us not to run. It was a cocaine-fueled bear. So
Oh, Jesus.
is it worse, Mike? In the hunt? It was a cocaine-fueled bear. So
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, it's the death rattle on the last couple words that really gets me.
yeah. Ron McGill would still tell us not to run. It was a cocaine-fueled bear. So
Oh, Jesus.
Dan's oh Jesus is great.
I should have stopped.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus.
Your conviction that you can plow through this, that
Yes.
like you just got to keep talking and you can get to the other side is inexplicable.
Ron McGill would still tell us not to run. It was a cocaine-fueled bear. So
Oh, Jesus.
That little hiccup.
He still said sorry in the fluffy voice.
Yeah, the hiccup. I mean, Ron McGill would still tell us not to run. It was a cocaine-fueled bear. So
Oh, Jesus.
oh, what the hell?
You can hear the phlegm getting to the part in the
Yes.
throat where it stops.
Ron McGill would still tell us not to run. It was a cocaine-fueled bear. So
Oh, Jesus.
it hurt.
I know this isn't possible, but every time you play it, it seems like it gets worse. Like I know it's a recording of the same bit of sound,
Yeah.
but it feels like it's getting worse every time I hear it.
It was a cocaine-fueled bear. So you hear something new every time.
You really do. It's a panoply of misery.
It was a cocaine-fueled bear. So plan of what?
Time now for Mike Schur's daily stat of the day.
Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day.
I don't know if y'all saw this.
Uh-oh, here he goes.
The
It's
Boston Celtics
Celtics.
defeated
I
the
knew
Miami
it.
Heat last night,
Knew it.
134-121.
Yeah, they're good.
Celtics were -9.5, covered easily. Interesting. It was the third straight game the Celtics have scored 130 or more points, according to a stat they showed on NBC Sports Boston last night. The last time the Celtics scored 130 or more in 3 straight games was March of 1968.
Wow.
Man.
Now, to give you some idea of how long ago that was, I looked this up. In the first of those 3 games, a 144-118 win, a rookie guard chipped in 11 points for the San Diego Rockets. That guard's name, Pat Riley.
Riles.
A rookie guard named Pat Riley chipped in 11 points for the San Diego Rockets. So the Boston Celtics ruining Pat Riley's day since March of 1968.
My favorite moment of last night's game was on the perimeter, Jason Tatum being guarded for one of Udonis Haslam's 9 minutes in the game.
Oh, that was so bad. I rarely feel pity for the Miami Heat, who I truly dislike. I felt bad. They put in Haslam, I think, to foul Tatum. And then Tatum just ran past him before he could foul him. He just blew past him so easily. That was the easiest layup of Jason Tatum's career. It made me actually feel pity for Udonis Haslam.
You are super excited about how well the Celtics are playing, correct? This seems like the most overwhelming version of this team, and it was plenty overwhelming the second half of last season.
Yeah, this is the best I've ever seen them look, at least since the original Big 3 year. They had a lot of holes in their game, every single one of which was infuriatingly exposed by Steve Kerr and Steph Curry and Draymond Green in the finals. I wouldn't say they filled all their holes. I'm not smart enough about basketball analysis to know if they filled all their holes. They filled a lot of their holes. Their second unit is so much better. They had no wings who could score last year off the bench. And so every time Tatum and Jaylen Brown went out, they just got run off the court. They now have an entire second unit that's pretty competent and can score and create and give their starters rest. Their ball handling has improved significantly, partly because they got Malcolm Brogdon and partly because Tatum just appears to have worked really hard on his dribbling on the offseason. Jaylen Brown's still iffy. I still don't trust. He had 6 turnovers last night. I don't entirely trust him. But Brogdon makes an enormous difference. And by the way, they're doing all this without Time Lord, who isn't going to come back until Christmas. It's pretty exciting to be a Celtics fan right now. Like they don't seem to have a lot of weaknesses. They're not as locked in defensively as they were last year, but they also don't have to be because they're off to a historically good start offensively.
But they will be when Williams comes back.
That's what you'd have to assume. Also, is that the defense, the interior defense, especially the teams they've lost to the Bulls twice, and they've lost to Cleveland twice in overtime. So the Bulls are the only team that's beaten them in regulation. And the Bulls wins. If you look at those box scores, it's like Vucevic has like 27 rebounds. Like they get hammered on the boards if there's a really good rebounding 4 or 5. That's where they can run into trouble because they don't have Time Lord to clean up the paint. But you would assume that when he gets back, they're giving up like 110 points a game or something, or 115 or something. You would assume that would go down significantly.
They're middle of the pack defensively in terms of points giving up per game. But when you score, to your point, when you're scoring 125 plus every single night, does it really matter? And Derek White has been exceptional for the Celtics. He has been really, really good, Mike.
He is the other guy who's taken this weird leap. Like they talked a lot in the offseason, I guess, about having him play with more confidence, and he looks way more confident. Like he's not flinching when he's open for 3. He's driving a lot more. He's getting fouled a lot more. He's taking contact. Like look, Miami last night shot 52, 45, 100. That was their shooting line, and they lost by 13. Like they Strus, Robinson, someone named Highsmith, and Gabe Vincent were like 12 of 21 from 3, and they lost by 13. Like that's the thing, is no one can match them currently offensively. So I think that there's a little less pressure on them to like play every defensive possession as intensely as they can. By the way, what is the strategy here with Kyle Lowry? Mike Ryan, what are we thinking here? Lead the league in minutes? Is that the best strategy for Kyle Lowry? I don't know that that's the best strategy to employ.
I only
for
have
a 38-year-old who's not any good.
I only have so much bandwidth, and I cannot devote any more to a Kyle Lowry team playing this many minutes. I've moved on to college hoops.
Kind of has to, though, Mike. I mean,
This
Jimmy
is
Butler's
this is
hurt,
such a
guys
cop
are
out.
hurt.
I
This is such a cop out. I've listened to you rant about the Heat and how great the Heat are for
You're
like
right.
years now.
Yeah, but
and now the year where the Celtics are dominating, you're like, well, no, I don't have time for that.
I mean, I really don't, though. I told you what I thought about this team entering the season. I told you what I thought during parts of the season.
10 games in, you said go ahead and tank. You've given up.
Yeah, no, I think they haven't addressed the roster.
You've
He's
given up.
mentioning all the improvements that Boston has made. That's a team that made it to the NBA Finals, and they still tweaked their roster. And
the Heat made none.
Miami failed to do so, and the plan was let's just get older together. And it's not working out.
But
And
Bam
I think
has been great. Jimmy Butler didn't play last night, and
Bam's
Bam, they are elite
Butler's pretty
defensively
important.
still when Bam is on the court, and offensively he's gotten better.
Guys, they're missing their best player. It's not just last night. He hasn't been there that often. And so, like, the Heat are going to be fine if Jimmy Butler is fine.
I don't think there's nothing from this season that would be evidence that they're going to be fine when Jimmy Butler gets there. Jimmy Butler was there at times, and they weren't playing their best ball either. I think that they absolutely have to make a move. And if they're going to keep rolling out with the status quo, I'm going to keep devoting my attention other places. I'm not at all bullish on them. And yes, it times up with Boston being better, but this is really more of a Miami Heat thing than it is a Boston thing.
Mike, I'm interested as a Celtic fan. Are you more concerned about the Bucks or the Nets? Because I'm telling you, the Nets, if they're healthy, going to be a problem. Big problem.
I am concerned about the Bucks because they're great, and they're also playing. They're playing without Middleton, and they're right behind the Celtics. So I think they're the other great team in the East. But this is the problem. I texted your friend Amin Al Hassan last night out of frustration in the first half because the Heat run one play. They run, Bam brings the ball up. They run a high pick and roll for Hero or Max Strus, and then that person either takes a three, drives, and kicks, or hits a floater. And I was losing my mind because they were running that play over and over and over again. And then on defense, they were running that stupid, petty college zone thing that they do. And the Celtics momentarily, for some reason, forgot how to attack a zone in the NBA.
You hate
and
that
it was working. It was like 48-48. And I was furiously texting Amin and saying, explain to me what's going on in this game. Please, I beg you. I can't take this anymore. And then I had another realization, which is if I care this much about a regular season NBA game in November, I'm going to have a heart attack and die. And I need to cool it. So I'm officially announcing that I'm cooling it a little on worrying about the Nets and worrying about the Heat and worrying about the Bucks. I'm just going to try to enjoy the NBA season at least until April, and then I will go back into the heart attack zone that I was in last night in the first half.
I'm sorry I'm not giving you the tears that you're looking for. Just know that what you're seeing in me is resignation. I didn't watch a second of the game. I was at Miami Rutgers. I don't like this Heat team right now. They need to thoroughly change things.
It's shocking to hear you having given up. It's a quarter of the way through the season, and you've given up.
They're not going to win anything. They may make the playoffs, probably a play-in battle if the roster stays status quo. Do you disagree?
I just don't think it will stay status quo. I don't know
Okay,
why
then
you.
I'll be back in.
Why would you think
why
that?
would
You know,
assume
Riley.
that it'll stay status
Right.
quo?
I'll be back in when they do that. And until then, though, it seems like a gigantic waste of time, does it not?
No.
Jeremy Taché just called you gutless in the chat.
No.
Okay. No, that works. Jeremy, that banter works when we have a good team. You can't be throwing that out when you have a bad team.
Mike, are you in or not? You're a Heat fan, like through good times, through bad times.
With this unit, no, I'm not in. With this unit, they needed.
You can't bail on your team because of Kyle Lowry. Like, what are you doing?
Well, they bailed on me when they put Kyle Lowry on this team.
One other thing that I wanted to bring up with Mike Schur, going back to the conversation we had with David Sampson in the local hour, LeBron James has actually achieved what he was trying to achieve at the end of yesterday's press conference, when after the game he waited for reporters to ask him and they never did, and he wondered, why is it that no one has asked me about Jerry Jones? Why have none of you asked me? When Kyrie Irving is in trouble, you ask me about Kyrie Irving, and that one makes sense because he's a fellow basketball player who used to be a teammate, but he has applied pressure by doing this because now it's a conversation again, Mike. People are talking about Jerry Jones being in that photograph from 1957 racist Arkansas, and I'm just curious what you make of the most recent development and everything happening with that Jerry Jones story and the Washington Post reporting on how poorly he has done with minority hires.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little unfair of LeBron. Like, it's a little bit of a cheap move. I get why he's doing it because he has a point to make. But forget about that, I guess. The thing with Jerry Jones was, like, to me, I don't know how much you've covered this or haven't covered this. I mean, was anyone shocked by this? He's 1 billion years old. He grew up in a segregated state. Like, it's neither surprising nor defining in terms of what kind of person he is. That was the life he was leading when he was 15 and living in Arkansas, wherever the hell he was. There are some things I think that are worth thinking about and discussing that we should keep thinking about and discussing. Number one, he said he went because he was curious, right? Which is definitely a quality I associate with Jerry Jones. Just rampant intellectual curiosity. That's what I think of. The thing he said was, oh wait, hold on. I wrote it down. He said, I didn't know at the time the monumental event really that was going on. I'm sure glad we're a long way from that. I am. That would remind me just continue to do everything we can to not have those kinds of things happen. That was what he said about the event that he witnessed, which was the desegregation, the attempt to stop the desegregation of his schools. Quick tip for people being caught racist in old photos. You want to forcefully propel yourself away from the racist thing, right? You want to say things like, those demonstrations were despicable and hurtful, and I'm so sorry to the men and women who suffered at the hands of that display of hate, whatever, something like that. But what he said was, I'm sure glad that we're a long way from that, which is what you say that about a traffic jam or when Stugotz tries to talk with phlegm in his throat.
Or the Cowboys' last Super Bowl.
Yeah, like exactly. So we should continue to do everything we can to not have those kinds of things happen. Isn't exactly like, yes, I agree, Jerry. We should definitely try not to have segregated schools again. Like, I've never understood this about this guy. Does he have a publicist that he ignores? Does he why he insists on doing his own press conferences all the time, and he's terrible at giving them. Like, he's terrible at, and the reason that we keep like wondering about him is because he's so bad at being straightforward and saying things that you should say in these moments. And so, yeah, LeBron's right. We should keep asking these questions of everybody. Like, when it's not only revealed that he was there, but now when he talks about it, it's in this sort of like mealy-mouthed way where he doesn't really address the issue or talk about it like it's a serious thing. And the Post is right. Like, the Cowboys have never had a black head coach. They're one of only a half a dozen or so teams who have never had a black head coach. There are people high up in his organization who are of African-American descent. But since Jerry Jones took over 30 years ago, they've had 2 black coordinators. Like, it's like he's uniquely bad at doing the sort of even optics-based things that you should do if you're him. And the whole thing he runs the league. He and Robert Kraft run the league. And it's so embarrassing to the league to have that guy be caught in that situation regardless of, he can say everything he wants about, no, I do this and I do this, and I'm proud of my track record, but he's just so uniquely bad at explaining his way out of these moments. I just don't understand why. I don't know. Someone has to get to him and say, like, hey, can we give you a publicist?
Well, I don't think he has to, though, because, like, it doesn't matter. Like, he is, like you said, he basically runs one of the biggest sporting leagues in the world. Like, he can get away with having these weak responses and no one can hold him accountable to it. So he just can go out and say what he wants without a publicist to be like, hey, this is maybe not the right thing to say here.
But when Schur says, does he have a publicist? He had one, and he was fired or let go because he was peeping on cheerleaders in the locker room.
Oh, that's right.
Rich Dalrymple, yeah.
And beyond that, though, Mike, he is clearly someone who philosophically just wants to be at the center of the attention. And I don't mean that as even disparagement. He just shows again and again that he likes being the ringleader of the circus and doesn't care what the criticisms are, doesn't care what you think about him doing press conferences or what he says in those press conferences. It's a billionaire's toy, and he treats it as such, and he doesn't feel like he needs the advice of anybody. He's going to say and do what he wants, always, for the rest of his life.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? Is that he has the thirst for fame that like rock stars have, I think, where it doesn't matter what's happening, what the subject matter is. You know, I believe I heard Sally Jenkins say when you interviewed her the other day about this, that they asked every owner to comment on this story. He was the only one who said yes. It's like he just like he wakes up in the morning and is like, where is someone who wants to listen to me? Where is that person? And how quickly can I get in front of that person? And that's not an attractive quality in anyone, I don't think. I say that literally as I'm at a microphone doing something I do daily. But in my defense, I signed a contract, a Scientology S billion-year contract that has very significant punishment if I disobey.
Mike, good talking to you. Thank you, sir, and don't ever disobey. And with him for tomorrow? We're doing another one with him for tomorrow?
Are we?
I mean, we don't
have to.
We don't have to, but I mean,
it's up to him. If he's got one and he wants to do 5 more minutes, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Wait,
It's okay if you don't, though, too. Either way.
I've got something that speaks ill of the dead. You want something that speaks ill of the dead?
Yes.
Depends.
All right. It's not like a friend of yours or anything.
All right.
By the way, did you see Satch Sanders sitting next to Prince William? I never thought I would ever see that photograph.
Oh, we haven't talked about Prince William yet at being at the Celtics game.
They were chanting USA. They were chanting USA at him.
Yeah.
And
Boston always comes through in the
William
clutch.
and Kate had to be like, these fucking idiots. Fucking Americans.
There were 2 great moments. One of them was Satch Sanders sitting next to him, who, if you don't know who Satch Sanders is, by the way, Stugotz, 8 rings on that guy. Played with the Celtics in the Bill Russell era. 8 rings, better than Jordan.
Did he have anything to do with them, though? I mean, like
He played. He was a starter.
Okay.
Also, first black head coach in the Ivy League, that guy, of any sport. But that was incredible. But the best moment was at one point Tatum hit like yet another 3-pointer to get to like 47 points, and they shot Prince William, and he was clapping very politely, and he looked over at his wife and clearly mouthed the words, "He's very good."
He's very good.
He's very good.
He's very good. He reminds me of myself when I played polo at Eton.
Why didn't the Celtics fans like at least chant like Boston Tea Party or something like that? Like USA is all they had. American chants, very unoriginal.
Because we beat them 0-0 in soccer.
Right. So. Dominated the game.
You wanted them to chant Boston Tea Party?
He's
weird.
Something that's not USA.
Revolution.
Like you see, like I see all these.
Johnny Hancock.
Johnny
Hancock.
Literally anything other than USA.
Magna Carta. Magna Carta.
Hello, Brandi. Thank you for being on with us. First question before we get into why it is that you're on with us. Are you the owner of the most famous goal in the history of American soccer?
I don't know if I own that right. I know I have a goal that was absolutely monumental and changed the outcome of a game. So I'll take that. But I think Christian Pulisic scored a pretty immense goal yesterday. So let's say everybody gets to share in both of those goals.
How did it change your life immediately? Like, and what are the most seismic ways that changed your life?
Well, this morning I'm talking to you, so I wouldn't have the opportunity to be in your presence and for us to talk about the game on such a great level. And, honestly, to have partnerships like the one that I have with Frito-Lay and that they have with U.S. Soccer Foundation, and the fact that they are impacting communities across this country of young people so that they can have access to the game is incredible. And so for me, I think that goal that I happened to score, but really was a team effort, collective throughout the World Cup, created a platform for all of us to use soccer as a vehicle for better and for access and for equality and inclusion across our landscape.
When you talk about access, though, when you were at Davis Junior High School, right there, there was not a girls' soccer team, correct? You had to play on the boys' soccer team, yes?
Well, no, technically it was the co-ed team that only had boys. So, yeah.
And
call it what you like.
Okay, so you were the only girl on the team, though, correct?
When I came to the school, there was about 4 girls that I played soccer with that we all wanted to participate, and we all came out at the same time. And there was only boys out there, and the coach asked us what we were doing there, and we said we wanted to play on the team or at least have a tryout. And he kind of gave us the up and down look and said, well, this really isn't for you. And luckily, one of my good friends, who is still to this day one of my good friends, Stephen Robertson, said, Coach, you should watch them play. They're pretty good. And so with that advocacy he gave, and I think that's really, again, what we're talking about. When you have advocacy and you have allies, it makes barriers to entry a little bit less and opportunity greater.
What are the landmarks you would point to and how that shaped you? Just playing high school soccer against boys shaped you how?
Well, actually, I think just playing the game shaped me in so many ways. Again, and this is why this initiative with the U.S. Soccer Foundation is truly, and Frito-Lay All-In initiative is truly, I think, immense in nature, because I learned not only things about myself, whether that would be determination, grit, a healthy mindset. It also gave me a greater perspective of that I am one amongst a team, and that my contribution should not be heavier than anybody else's, nor should I be the most important thing. So I think there's a lot of lessons that our young people learn through collective team sports that we just don't get other places. And when it comes down to the pressure moments, teaching young people that it's okay sometimes that we don't get it right, that we fall down, we have to get back up, that there are people who support us, that believe in us. And sometimes you're going to get cut from the team, and sometimes you're going to sit on the bench, and sometimes you're going to score the winning goal. And all of those things are really valuable. And I would say there's not one of those lessons that for me has been more important than the other.
When you mentioned determination and grit, when you were at Davis Junior High School, did you have to be tougher than the boys?
I don't think I had to be, but I think I was. That was pretty much in me. I think I had this competitiveness that just existed from the beginning. And I love to challenge and I love to compete. And I think sometimes, especially for girls, those two words get a little bit of a negative connotation. And I think last night when we were out in Pico Rivera for our All-In initiative with about 250 young soccer players, there was girls and boys. And I think the idea of inclusion was absolutely seen. We have 2 young players that play for U.S. Soccer's national teams at the young level and also at the full level that play with boys every day. And so I think when we when we get those two groups together and they see that there's value in each one, and maybe it looks different than the other, then we have a great opportunity for even more success than when we're separate.
Where does the $600,000 donation go with the All In with Frito-Lay initiative? How is that money being spent, and how do you see it moving soccer and moving the participation of young people closer to access?
Well, I think what you'll see in the model is that we're going to influence coaches. More than 1,000 coaches will be trained, educated, given resources, given equipment, so that they can have the proper training, so that they can go out and be great role models. And then when they get to those parks and those fields, the 30,000 or more kids that we will influence will now have people who are knowledgeable, who care about what they're doing, who want to make a difference in the lives of these kids, who have the proper training to do so. And now what I told the kids is the real byproduct of this, Dan, is that they then will become the coaches and the mentors for the younger kids. And now the ripple continues to go outward. And it's not just we say, okay, it was a $600,000 donation. It was we impacted tens of thousands of lives, and it's not just this generation, it will be the generation after and after and after.
Are you amazed, given where you were at the time that you made the goal, that we are now in a time, it took way too long to get to pay equity, to get to this U.S. World Cup with the men also being money for the women?
Well, of course. I mean, I think we were highly exhausted prior to the signing of the CBA, because for 4 decades we've been talking about the power of women in sports, the power of women in business, the power of women just to impact communities, not just their households, and what contributions they can make. And so, yeah, it was slow going. And yes, the conversations were exhausting, but look at what we're doing. And I think, just to be in the present is really important. We need to know where we came from and how we got here. But what we can do going forward with initiatives like the All In initiative is truly the purpose. And that's the drive. And that's absolutely what gets me excited about what soccer can do. It is absolutely a vehicle for change. And I am proud to be on the bandwagon. What's the most moved you get by someone being moved by being in your presence? I'm overwhelmed every time and honestly humbled, because I saw myself in all of those kids last night. The ball brings such joy and delight to me. Every time I see it roll, it comes my way. I literally sometimes will have an event and I'll have a soccer ball with me. I'll be walking through an airport and I pass it to someone and they pass it back. And now all of a sudden we've made a connection. Our eyes meet, we smile. Like, to me, soccer speaks all languages. It doesn't always look the same and it always isn't played with the same tactics. But people can rejoice in the beauty and the essence of the poetry and the grace of the game and the athleticism and the power and the strength of the players. And really that it brings us all together in a way that nothing else can. And it stops wars and it stops fighting. And we can really sit together and that to me is, again, what we're trying to provide, an opportunity to be together, to share the game, to have access for all. But how about young girls and the way that you move them as an icon? You keep making the conversation. I know this. I've heard you interviewed enough to know you're going to make it about team, and you don't want the I, but you are an icon. This is not up for dispute. And I'm guessing that when you're with 250 kids, that there are many girls and boys, but many girls that you've given permission to yeah, you can do this too. I did it first. Well, I think
this will be our last question too.
Yeah, thank you. Honestly, Dan, I think I appreciate that, and I think there is a connection when I do meet girls. Like last night, we had 10. I don't know. We had 30 girls out there last night, and the beauty of it was that I could look them in the eye and I can say, hey, I can give them some tips. I can give them a high five. I can say, you can do this. This is absolutely for you. But honestly, I think it's the interaction that I see them have with their peers, and those being males as well as females, and them feeling the confidence to be in that space. That to me is really the most important. I gave more autographs to boys last night than I did to girls. And that's not to say that the girls weren't impacted, but the fact that now it's like there's this comfort and this honest acceptance that we belong in the space together is it's really phenomenal. And I do feel proud, and I do feel that part of my contribution made that happen.
Again, I will tell the people Frito-Lay is teaming up with Brandi Chastain for the All In with Frito-Lay initiative. It's in partnership with the U.S. Soccer Foundation. It's $600,000, a donation to fuel the initiative. Brandi, appreciate your time, appreciate your work. And last question, real quick question on the way out. Where's the sports bra? Where is it?
Right behind me. It's right there.
Okay, there it is. Good talking to you, Brandi. Thank you for the time. Going to get to the bucket of death in just a second. Going to start paying off penalties next week, including Jessica learned after selecting her penalty that this is harder than you think it is if you are not an outdoorsman or don't know how to hunt or fish. Jessica has to catch a fish. Her and her boyfriend have been working hard on how to catch a fish.
Oh, don't spoil it. I'm doing it all by myself. I will catch a fish before I come into the show one of the days next week. That is one of my punishments from this season on Grid of Death.
I spoiled it by saying you were recruiting.
I'm doing it all by myself,
okay.
man.
Yep.
I'm sorry I spoiled it.
What do you have to do? Sleep at home?
Not eat gluten.
Well, you say that I cheated, but Billy chose run to the highest point in Florida, or in South Florida, which is just a hill near his house. Like
you should have to run up the garbage dump. I think that's a higher hill.
Before we get to the bucket of death, though, I wanted to ask you guys a couple of things. First and foremost, Patrick Peterson has been quoted as saying he's a former teammate of Kyler Murray, and he has been quoted as saying Kyler Murray only cares about Kyler Murray. I don't know if you saw it earlier this season. I don't know if it was a pick six or just an interception, but after Patrick Peterson intercepted Kyler Murray, he, as part of his celebration, started playing video games in the end zone, pretending to play video games. The Kyler Murray experience, and I've wondered how this will happen as young people start taking over positions of leadership in sports and might not want to deal with the constructs of sports the way they've been dealt with before. The quarterback position has notoriously been very boring on purpose in front of microphones. Kyler Murray, we heard him last week say, schematically on fourth down, we were bleeped, he said, which is not something you ever hear a quarterback say publicly.
No, and by the way, he was very hurt by those comments because he considers, now whether Patrick Peterson agrees with him or not, he considers Patrick Peterson to be a bit of a big brother, a mentor, a guy that has really helped him out. And I thought he had a very reasonable response when he said, hey, Patrick, if you're going to say that, like, hey, you have my phone number. Like, call me, invite me on, at least let me know that you're going to say that about me. I thought we were closer. He was really hurt by it.
Yeah, the official tweet from Kyler Murray's verified Twitter account, this isn't true. You on some weird shit at P2. You got my number. If you really felt like this as a, quote, big bro or, quote, mentor, you're supposed to call me and tell me, not drag me so your podcast can grow.
Again, though, he already mocked Kyler Murray in a sensitive spot by picking him off and pretending to play video games when the Kyler Murray controversy, such that it was that he had a contract clause that he had to study more because people are saying he's playing, what is it, too much Call of Duty?
Yeah, but that's gamesmanship right there. Like, I think Kyler's okay with that. Those words hurt, especially if indeed you're trying to boost your podcast numbers at your friend's expense.
What's going on there? The vibes in Arizona are so bad. His body language towards his coach, sometimes he's discussing with the play. He's ripping his chin strap. He's not making it a secret that he's unhappy.
Well, I ask you guys this when I talk about young people. Obviously, throughout the history of sports, that is a position that is careful. As generations change and are different, as leadership has to be different to reach across generational and cultural gulfs, I ask you, a quarterback who had his choice of sports could have been a millionaire baseball player, is a millionaire football player. Got his contract extension no matter how bad his homework habits and no matter how much his teammates might dislike him. What happens when the Zach Wilsons of the world have a certain attitude for an age group and they don't want to play by the rules of, I'm not coming to the military school to be like every other quarterback ever. I want to do it differently. I'm going to speak differently. I'm going to behave differently. How do you like it?
Well, it's Aaron Rodgers when it's working well, and it's Baker Mayfield when it's not. The league legislates that. Your play kind of dictates what kind of headache you're going to be. And right now, Kyler Murray kind of seems to be regressing. He's also single-handedly won them games, single-handedly kept them in games with his athleticism. But the Kyler Murray of a couple years ago was promising to be something better than what it is right now.
And with Zach doesn't have the resume to say after a game, which he clearly hurt his defense. Like, he cost them the game. He was terrible in that game. He doesn't have the resume to act like that yet. He hasn't done enough. Like,
understood, but Mike is saying the regression. He's pointing out the regression. He's right about the regression. However, that regression is not going to cost Kyler Murray. It's going to cost the people who banked on Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's going to keep getting chances because that contract guarantees it. It might have contract clauses that don't guarantee stuff, but that it guarantees. He's going to keep getting chances, and the people who believed in him are going to get fired before he does. There aren't going to be any consequences to Kyler Murray anytime soon. Zach Wilson.
The consequence is going to be, as you just stated, Cliff Kingsbury.
But that's not bad for Kyler Murray.
No,
at this point,
that's what he wants.
Given that he was just at a microphone saying schematically we were bleeped on 4th and short, I don't know how much he cares that he's going to get. I don't know how much he's blaming himself for what's happening. Why would he?
I just don't know what the answer is. Is it go after Lincoln Riley? I think he seems pretty happy. Cliff Kingsbury, if he were to pick a coach that is able to connect with someone like Kyler Murray, it'd be of an age group that you'd consider those things, of an attitude and a mindset. Okay, you get Cliff Kingsbury out. The problem still remains you need someone to reach and connect with Kyler Murray on levels because it's a bad situation. And the intangible stuff is real in that sport. When you can lose a locker room, it goes south pretty quick.
You say Kingsbury, Mike, but he's a generation removed. And the new guy that's coming in is more like McDaniel, which is be an ally to Tua, believe in Tua. The new McVay, does McVay strike you? How often have you seen McVay livid, rage-filled, screaming at anybody, demanding discipline and accountability?
But it also, like, those are different guys, too. Kyler Murray and Tua are different guys, different upbringing. Different ways to go about stuff.
But I think Mike brings up an interesting point. Like, Cliff Kingsbury loves Kyler Murray, has loved him since high school, and Kyler Murray still can't connect with the guy who believed in him the most. Maybe Lincoln Riley is, a good choice. I don't know if I'm Lincoln, if I leave USC in that situation for Arizona.
I'm just struggling to pinpoint. They're going to have a coaching search, you got to imagine, and Kyler Murray's contract dictates that they're going to have to. He's the one Cliff Kingsbury is the one that's going to leave town, and they're going to have to try to figure this out with a different coach, like they did in other instances with Baker Mayfield being the most recent, and you'll figure out what's what, and then the excuses for Kyler Murray cease to exist once you eliminate Cliff Kingsbury out of there. I mean, he's very clearly, you don't say schematically we were effed if you're on the same page with your coach. You don't say the F word to your coach for everybody on national television to read your lips if you're on the same page with your coach. They've very, very clearly been off all year.
Let's go to the bucket of death, please. I've seen the Grim Reaper roaming around here. I don't know who is picking for whom. We will begin with Chris Cody. He will tell us who he's picking for.
I am picking for Tony to start here.
Okay.
Tony usually goes first, so here we go.
Tony's been out all week with a sprained ankle.
Sprinkle.
Uh-oh.
It's like the size of a grapefruit.
Jets.
The Jets are a 3-point dog at the Vikings.
Oh, he's a Vikings guy. I'm going to put that back.
Yep.
What time's the game?
1 o'clock. Yeah, 1 o'clock.
Yeah, definitely. All
El
right.
Primo.
Bills. That feels like a keeper. I got to keep it. So
The Bills are at the Patriots. The Bills are a 3.5-point favorite.
All right, Tony has the Bills. I'm up next for me. Like a good rummage. Eagles.
Keep it.
Keeping
the
it.
Eagles are a 4.5-point favorite against the Vikings. That was excellent work. I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. The Titans.
Yes.
That was excellent work by you, Chris.
Thank you, Dan.
Very well.
Although the
Whittingham.
Titans
Not a lot of big favorites this week.
Although the Titans are coming off a loss, and you know what that means. The Eagles going to get their best. I mean,
only the
Titans
Cowboys
off
are
the
double-digit
Yeah.
favorites this week.
Yeah.
2 teams on a bye, Cardinals and the Panthers. I'm picking for myself and Billy. I'll go for myself first. I have the Seattle Seahawks. I will keep them. They're 7.5-point favorites at the Rams. The Rams are truly awful.
yep.
After winning the Super Bowl.
Crazy, right?
I would take it.
Bryce Perkins, Jesus.
Now Aaron Donald's out.
The Big Apple for Billy.
New York teams.
Do you know that the Giants are home underdogs against the Commanders?
Yep.
I was astounded by that when I saw that line.
Giants are really beat up.
So both the New York teams are underdogs. I'll put it back for Billy.
The Giants
Could've
are
picked the Liberty.
2.5 point dog. Could you have picked
Trying
the
to
FC.
maintain the spirit of the game. All right. Fine Bucket plus Def. All right, so that's what Billy gets.
Well, there was a pretty mighty big fine.
Yeah,
from
I see
Stugotz today.
$10 there on the
Yep.
table.
There's
So
a,
I feel like there's probably like $50 in here, maybe.
How
That's
much
nice.
death have you suffered this year, Whittingham? 6, 7 times you've died?
I owe 6 punishments. So I've had a pretty rough go of it this season.
Who's picking for Roy? Has Greg Cody picked also?
I'll pick for Roy.
Okay.
After I pick for myself.
All right.
Golden Helmet of Life.
Wow.
Again.
Congrats. Jesus.
My second time this season.
The golden helmet of life. The golden helmet of life.
The golden helmet of life. That was for Roy, right?
I said it was for me.
Congratulations, Jessica.
Thank you.
No one is happy for you.
Per usual with this show and these people. Roy has the Packers.
They're a 4.5 point favorite at the Bears.
Keeping it.
At the Bears.
He owns the Bears.
Is Fields playing?
Even the cocaine fueled Bear.
Okay. You're right. He does own the Bears.
Would you like me to pick for Greg?
Someone has to, yeah.
You got to do it.
I'll pick for Greg first.
Okay.
Here we go. We got the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Keep that, I
They are a
think.
4 point favorite at home against the Saints.
We'll keep that for Greg.
There's no big spreads in the NFL.
Everyone stinks.
All right, picking for myself now. Got the Indianapolis Colts.
They are a 10.5
Cowboys.
point dog
That is a
at the
big spread.
Cowboys.
Put it back,
Putting
Mike.
that one back.
Yep.
Now I have the Pittsburgh Steelers.
1 point dog at the Falcons.
I got no choice.
It's a coin toss.
Everything in the sport is a coin toss. Everyone should be 4 and 7.
All right. Good rummage here. Rummaging. I want that cowboy helmet. Maybe a little Cardinal helmet.
Cardinals and Panthers are on the bye, as
give me
Whittingham
Kyler
mentioned.
Murray. Give me Kyler Murray. I got Russell Wilson.
The Broncos are an 8 point dog at the Ravens.
You used to love getting Russell Wilson. Like 9 weeks ago.
Especially with points. With points.
I
That's
know
an
you'd be in
ideal
it.
scenario. He'll get you that garbage time cover.
No matter what.
Always
But-
used to play close games.
All right, here we go. Here we go. I got one. New York Giants. At least they're at home. I mean,
Again, 2.5 point dog against the Commanders.
At home.
Crazy.
It's the Commanders.
Oh,
The Taylor
damn.
Heineke.
yeah.
I got the Chiefs at the Bengals.
You don't feel good about that.
Revenge
I
game.
would keep it.
Joe Burrow.
I would keep it because if you
Is
actually
Chase coming back this week?
the swap helmet and swap with me, that's no good. So keep that one.
The Chiefs are at the Bengals. They're a 2 point dog.
The
Great
Chiefs
game.
are a 2 point favorite.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, they're a 2 point favorite. All right, fine. I'll keep it.
There you go.
You're upset keeping Patrick Mahomes.
I am. I don't like anything there, but I'm just going to reach again to see what I would have gotten if I'd changed it. The Wizard of Oz helmet is what I would have gotten.
Yeah.
Cocaine fueled bear. You could pick that.
It would have been the Lions, the Bears.
Lions are home dogs to the Jags.
God, I hate this shit.
The league?
There are very few people in the world that I can say this about, but if I were playing word association and you give me this man's name, Thomas Jones, the thing I immediately think, I can't be the only one that this happens with, Thomas. Before any of your other accolades, what I think to myself is biceps. big giant biceps. It's you and Michael Pittman are the guys I associate with biceps. So let me begin here, and thank you for joining us. There's an 8-part docuseries done by Prime Video, Life After. It's following 12 retired NFL players as they navigate life after their playing careers, and Thomas is one of them. But was there anyone in the league at the time? I don't know if you did any comparisons on this where you're like, that guy's biceps better than my biceps.
I don't know. There were a lot of guys with big biceps in the NFL during those times, but I would have to say the one person that I was constantly in competition with was my brother, my friend, and also teammate Michael Pittman. We had some pretty intense bicep, tricep workout days in Arizona and Tampa, so I guess he would come close.
Well, tell me what that is. Tell me what it is that makes the perfect bicep. Tell me what is what you would do with dumbbells, for example, because I imagine you were throwing around a substantive amount of weight.
Yeah, it's just balancing out the tricep and the bicep. I think when people think arms and big biceps, they think just that bicep, but the bicep isn't even the majority of your arm. It's the tricep. So a lot of people neglect the triceps, thinking that they want to have this big bicep here in the middle, but it's actually your tricep that gives your arm the most girth. So a lot of tricep push downs, a lot of what we call skull crushers with the curl bar, a lot of dips, weighted dips with heavy weight. So you put a weight around your waist, and you'll do multiple dips until your back of your arms literally feel like they're about to fall off. And that's how you get Thomas Q. Jones, Michael Pittman biceps and tricep.
But give me the details, though. How many dips and what is the weight that's around your waist?
The weight usually would be maybe a 10, 15-pound dumbbell. And then as you continue to get stronger, you go up in weight. So that 10, 15-pound dumbbell now becomes a 20, 25-pound dumbbell. Usually you do less reps with more weight because it's heavier, but it's more intense. So you're constantly pushing yourself to get as strong as you possibly can. And that helps continue to build the muscle around your triceps and biceps when it comes to just arm curls. Any type of exercise that's going to help you with your curls. It's the same concept.
Do you ever walk around the house and just curl random objects?
No, I've never done that. When I'm at home, I don't want to curl anything. I'm usually too tired to curl anything. But I've lost significant bicep mass since I retired 10 years ago.
Bullshit. Bullshit.
But
it's bullshit. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you. You're wearing another one of those extra medium shirts, which I imagine is it's the only thing that you have in the closet. And it's bullshit what you're saying.
No. I have a few tailored suits that I wear out, but at home, I'm definitely comfortable in this is one of my friends' clothing lines. So I had to wear this. It's called Beast Behavior. You can actually get some of the apparel at beastbehavior.com. So I'm always trying to represent my friends in their clothing lines. But no, honestly, I think some of this is just residual bicep residue from 12 years of the NFL.
You can't buy normal shirts, correct? Or you couldn't buy normal, yes, t-shirts, but dress shirts, there's just no way that you could get the proper fit without a tailor, correct?
Well, usually I can wear an 18, size 18 dress shirt, 17 and a half. It's a little fitted on my arms. Now, a lot of times my suit jackets, I do have to have the arms tailored. So I wear 44 long, but the arms will be just too tight. So I usually have to get every suit jacket tailored to fit my arms. So that is an area where having the biceps and triceps can get a little tricky.
What did you find interesting, and why did you participate in this 8-part docuseries? I've told people before that it's really hard to explain how hard it is for an athlete who has been a symbol for youth and vitality to grieve the death of what used to be his identity in his early 30s. Most of us do not retire from the thing we love at that age. So why did you participate in Prime Video's 8-part docuseries, and what did you find interesting in the viewing of Life After?
Well, I participated because this was my story. I played 12 years in the NFL. I dedicated the majority of my life to football. Started playing organized football at 8, and I retired at 33. So football has always been a huge part of my life. I've always been a student of the game as well as a player. And so when I retired, I didn't have anything that I was as passionate about. And I knew that there were a lot of other guys that were in the same position as me. And a lot of us struggle once you retire because you're trying to find that next thing. Most people don't retire from something they love at 25, 26, 30 years old. You still have your whole life ahead of you. But the mentality you have to be an NFL player is that you're going to play forever. That's the mentality that you have to have. And unfortunately, that just isn't the case. So I decided to be a part of this because I'm also a producer, an executive producer on the project. And I felt like it was very important to try to tell some of these guys' stories in regards to how they transitioned from the love of the game of football to their second act in life.
I've read quotes from you where you're talking about, and I don't know how this happened, whether the freedom that comes from leaving the discipline of football leaves you at 8 a.m. with a Corona in your hand when you're not even a drinker. Can you explain to us what was happening there and what you were thinking to yourself as you've got the freedom all of a sudden at 8 a.m.? That's something you could not have had in football very often. And you find yourself, well, what am I doing? I'm having drinks at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I found myself trying to find myself. That's literally what I was doing. It was like, usually at 8 o'clock, I'm in a team meeting, or I'm in the weight room, or I'm getting up, getting dressed, getting ready to go to pregame meal for a noon game on Sunday. So to not have that stare me in the face, and like you said, the freedom to do whatever I want to do, I was lost. I was trying to figure out, what do I do now? What do I do next? Something that I've done so militantly for so long. It's almost like I was kicked out of the club, the club, and all my friends are still there. So I'm standing outside the club, and I'm like, I guess I'll wait for them to come out because I can't go back in. So I went through a stage of depression, to be honest, trying to figure out who I was going to be, what I was going to be ambitious about again. And the only thing that I found that made me feel better was alcohol. I wasn't a drinker. I was more of a social drinker when I played. I was very, very detailed in my training and workouts. And so alcohol was something that just wasn't on my menu. But it was something that I found waking up in the morning and having a Corona at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then continuing to have those during the day, that at least helped me emotionally deal with the withdrawal of not having the actual game of football and not being in the locker room or around that environment. So it was a pretty tough time for me for about a year until I was fortunate enough to actually find Hollywood acting, producing. And then that's kind of when I started to make my positive shift.
Given the demands of football, given how hard it is to get to the top 1% of the 1% who are competing for money in that field, had you ever considered the who am I before retiring? Like, where am I? What am I? Had you even thought about those things before that?
The only time I was thinking, who am I? And this was still football related, was after my short stint in Arizona. Where things didn't go well. I was the 7th overall pick. I went to Arizona, and we didn't have a good team. There were a lot of expectations on me to come in and help change the organization, and we just didn't have the nucleus of players to do that. And so I didn't play well. I wasn't really liked that much by the organization. I didn't like the organization that much. It just wasn't the football experience I was used to, coming from being a 2-time state champion in high school football and an All-American in high school to being a consensus All-American in college. I had never suffered that much as a football player. So I had to question, who am I? If I don't get my act together and figure this thing out, I'm going to go down as one of the guys that just didn't make it. And so I had to figure out what I wanted then. but that was still within the world of football. Once I retired is when I realized, okay, football is no longer, you no longer have the option to be a football player. You no longer have the option for that to be your identity. So now what are you going to do? And so that was the struggle, was finding something that I was as passionate about and meant something to me as much as football. And I just couldn't find it on my own. I needed help.
For those who don't know, by the way, he is 26th all-time in career rushing yards, ahead of Eddie George, Tiki Barber, Marshawn Lynch, Clinton Portis, Sean Alexander. He was a tough, rugged runner for many years. So whatever it is that happened in Arizona, you were able to overcome it. Were you in retirement, when you talked to other guys about what was happening, did you find a sense of community in your sadness? Because I imagine retiring from football was harder than playing football for you.
Yeah, it was. It was very hard to retire. It was very hard to let that environment go, that relatable environment to guys who are going through the exact same situation as you, the same stakes. You win, you're a hero. You lose, you get fired. We all understand the consequences, no matter what background you come from, whatever culture you come from. We know these are the rules, and so there's a sense of comfortability there. And once you're kind of taken out of that environment, then it's like, well, I can't relate to someone necessarily who didn't play 12 years in the NFL, because it's not necessarily going to be the same conversations. And then the people who I was friends with and family and all this other stuff while I played, a lot of those people started to become people I didn't know. And I started to realize that it was my football identity. It was who I was as a football player that caused them to want to be around me and show me the love that they were showing me during that time. Because once I retired, it was almost like they retired from being friends and family at the same time. So it was a crazy transition, psychologically and emotionally that I had to make, and I didn't even know that I wasn't even prepared for it. That's what was so crazy. It just hit me out of nowhere. And I did find some family in other guys, but usually what tends to happen is when guys retire and they go through these situations where they're trying to find themselves, they do it alone. And a lot of times it doesn't end up well, because they don't know how to tell anyone, because for however many years of our lives we've been taught, don't be vulnerable, don't show weakness, don't open up, be tough, be a man, all these things that come with being a football player. And so that's why this project, being able to tell other guys' stories, that some of them struggled like I did, some of them didn't struggle like I did, but just the collective idea around what it's like as a retired NFL player to transition was very, very interesting to me, and the reason why I wanted to be a part of this.
The name of the project, again, is Life After, Prime Video's 8-part docuseries. You've gotten what kind of rewards from acting? What have you found fun or super challenging about acting?
I found that acting is very, very similar to football in a lot of ways, and that's the reason why I think once I tried it, because I didn't search for roles. I wasn't like, hey, let me try acting. I was introduced to this through a couple of people that I knew, and I was bored at that time. That's when I was drinking, and I was like, hey, what do I have to lose? Who cares? And I tried taking on a small role in the project and coming on as a producer. I didn't know necessarily what I was doing. I hadn't had any acting classes. I hadn't produced anything in the film and TV space, but I was always up for something new. And so once I performed, Clifton Powell, who's a legendary actor, he was my scene partner, and he said, "You have some raw talent. You should pursue this full time." And he's very assertive and very what's the word?
Persistent.
Yes, very, very persistent. So every time he would tell me, have you reached out to any actor studios or, and I'm like, no, I haven't. He was, like you said, persistent. He would just say, well, you need to call these people. I gave you the phone number to the studio. I gave you the agent's number. You need to call, So eventually I was like, okay, let me call him. And I did. So I reached out. got into an actor studio in South Florida. That's where I lived in Miami. And then from there, I just started to gain more interest in it. And then I made the choice in 2014 to actually move to Hollywood and pursue it full time. And it was the best decision that I could have ever made, especially as a retired NFL player.
What are the details of how bad the drinking got, or where and how did you realize that you had a little bit of a problem with it?
I realized that I had a problem with it because everything I did felt better if I was drinking. So I wasn't training for a Pro Bowl season as I was when I was in the NFL. But if I would go to the gym to play basketball, I would have to drink the Corona before I went. That just wasn't who I was. And so I realized once I started acting, because once initially I started acting, I was still drinking. But I realized once I moved to LA and I enrolled in an actor studio, Ivana Chubbuck's studio, which is a very, very prestigious actor studio, I realized this is like football. The similarities was very high stakes, very professional, very organized, very expensive. And the people in the classes and the teachers were no nonsense like my NFL coaches. And so as I started to realize, like, I'm a part of an organization now where the stakes are high. I mean, these are actors who have been in Juilliard, who have majored in drama. I'm a 12-year football NFL veteran that has no acting experience. You know, I need to get my stuff together if I'm going to even be able to compete in these classes and keep up in these scenes with my scene partners. So that was when I realized, man, you know, I'm back in an environment that's like football, where if I want to be successful and compete, I have to focus and I have to use the principles that made me a successful football player, and use those to help make me a successful actor.
You mentioned losing family and friends. Is there anything that hurt the way that did?
No, honestly, no, because I mean, you hear stories all the time of, you know, people that truly aren't there for, you know, their friend or their family, whoever comes into money or comes into success. But you never think that you're going to be one of those people. And I do think, you know, it's an adjustment across the board. It's an adjustment when you come into money, and it's an adjustment when people don't have access to that money anymore. It's an equal adjustment on both ends. You know, when someone becomes a celebrity that you've known your whole life, how do you see them as a celebrity when, especially if they don't act like one? Me, I never really acted like a celebrity. I've always been myself. I know my status. I know who I am. But that has nothing to do with my day-to-day life. You could work at a restaurant, or, you know, you could work in Hollywood, and you're going to get the same treatment from me, the same respect from me, the same grace. So a lot of times people take that as weakness, you know. So no, I would say that just certain situations that I would have never expected to be in with people really hurt. And acting helped me get through that as well, because I was able to put all of those vulnerable emotions into my characters based off of the acting technique that I was being taught. And it helped me grow, and it helped me evolve, and helped me use some of those painful moments and painful relationships. And it helped me use those and put that into my characters.
Do you have one that you remember more than the others of gutting you, where you were like, oh, really? I didn't think it was like that.
No, I think there are multiple situations. And they each hurt equally because each situation had a different meaning, different memories attached, you know, different love attached. So I wouldn't say that there's one in particular, but just overall knowing that once I retired, it was like, whoa, you know, I guess now that there's no more tickets to games or flights or restaurants to eat at or cars to ride in. Now all of a sudden it's, well, thanks, and good luck.
The name of the 8-part docuseries is Life After. It is on Prime Video. You have said that you're donating your brain to the Concussion Legacy Foundation. 12 years of football has done what to the body at 44 years old?
It's done a lot. It's done a lot. The thing about, they say football is a young man's game. So when you play over a decade, you still think you're a young man. So you don't see or think about the physical toll because at that point you're a trained warrior. If you play, if you start getting into 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, a decade, 2 decades in the NFL, you almost psychologically made yourself immune to injuries and pain because it's just a part of the game. Being tired, being sore, bleeding somewhere on your arm or your leg, or these are all MRIs and X-rays. These are just things that come with it. You're not thinking in MRI as a serious, because it's just you go to get an MRI and you're like, hopefully it's not as bad, so I can play this week. Versus, I hope it's not as bad. I hope it's not as bad, so we can fully heal. I'm not expected to be 100% ever. If I can be by the end of the season, if I can be at 65%, going into the playoffs, 65, maybe get a couple rest days during the week, where I'm not really taking too many reps. I'm ready for the game. I'm good. I'm ready to go out there and rush for 200 yards.
How crazy that is now. You can, at 44 years old, you now know, looking back at that man, that man was nuts. That man had to not consider consequences. He had to spend his life not thinking about what's it like at 44, because I got yards to get at 24.
Yeah, well, why am I going to think about 44 when my backup is trying to take my job at 24? I'm one missed game away from losing my job, losing my career, losing my dream, putting food on the table for my family. I didn't have kids at the time, but if I did, losing out on potentially, putting diapers on my kid, so that's how serious it is. It's that serious. And I went through multiple controversial situations where I had to play hurt on multiple teams. That's why I was on 5 different teams. Each team, it felt like they were trying to bring someone in to take my job. So I'm like, well, I can't afford to not produce, and I can't afford to be hurt. So for someone like me, who constantly had to continue to reinvent myself on each team and earn my respect with the team, the fans, the city, and put up numbers, it was equally that for me. It was actually more so that for me because I had no room for error, especially being hurt.
What do you regard as the greatest pain, not emotional pain, but physical pain that you've known in football?
Most physical pain. When I was in Arizona, my rookie year, I actually was hit, and early in the season, and I didn't realize it, but I think it was my 3rd game, my rookie season, and Darren Sharper caught me on an outside zone play, and he hit me here square, bam, helmet,
chest.
And I remember that hit. Say it again.
Chest, right in the middle of the chest.
Yeah, right here. And I knew I would gotten hit because I boom, and I knocked my breath out, and and obviously I popped up like, okay, that's enough. But a few weeks later, I started having shortness of breath, and I actually went to the Arizona Cardinals staff and told them that I couldn't breathe, and they sent me to all these different doctors, cardiologists, and gave me an albuterol inhaler. Everything was wrong completely. First thing they should have done was send me to a chiropractor, but that's too much like the right thing to do. So at the time, the Arizona Cardinals medical staff, I think because I continued to tell them I couldn't breathe, they just said, hey, I don't know. We don't know what it is. So fortunately, I found a chiropractor on my own. And the pain that I was having was, it felt like my three of my the rib heads had come out. And so it went from me having shortness of breath to every time I took a deep breath to feel like I was being stabbed in my chest 24 hours a day. And this was for 7-8 months straight, until I found the chiropractor that actually told me, hey, your rib heads are out. Let me put them back in. But by that time, I had been breathing so shallow because it was hurting so bad to breathe, that I developed a shallow breathing pattern. So it took me a long time to break that. Matter of fact, literally over the last 2 years, I finally started to breathe back to normal. But that pain of taking a deep breath and feeling like I was being stabbed I will never forget how that feels. I would never wish that on anybody.
Holy shit, that sounds like a nightmare. That you couldn't breathe. I don't imagine sleeping was real good. Your survival mechanism changes the way you breathe, and no doctors can tell you what's the matter. And you're playing through it?
Well, you have to play through it because they've sent you to everybody. They sent you to the Cleveland Clinic. They've sent you everywhere. And everyone's saying, we don't know what's wrong with him. So then they sent me to a psychiatrist because now I'm having panic attacks. So, and if you don't go to the psychiatrist now, it's conduct detrimental to the team. So you get fined. So it was the most bizarre situation I've ever been in my life. I wouldn't wish that situation on anybody, but what it did was it made me realize, hey, you have to take care of yourself, even as an NFL player. Get your own training staff, get your own doctors, get your own chiropractors, pay for your own massages and treatments on your own outside of what the NFL is going to do, because they're going to do as much as they can to keep you on the field. They're not going to do as much as they can do to keep you alive.
What can you tell us about the panic attacks? How long were you enduring the panic attacks?
Oh, this was 8-9 months because the worst part about it is I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know what was wrong. And they gave me medicine because they didn't know either. So they're like, well, maybe it's a psychological thing. So I had boxes full of Paxil, Xanax. But something inside said, don't take that. There's something going on. I don't know what it is, but I know that I'm not crazy. Not saying that people that take Paxil, Xanax are crazy, but I'm saying the way that they were trying to make me look as though I was crazy, I know I'm not. I can't breathe, and there's something physically going on inside. And what happened was the ribs were compressed against my vagus nerve. The vagus nerve goes from here all the way down to your stomach. It controls your breathing and digestion. So the ribs were compressed against the vagus nerve, similar to if you have a garden hose and you have your foot on the hose, no water can come out. So it went from me having shortness of breath to feeling like I was being stabbed in the chest to me having to feel like I needed to burp to get relief. So it was like a domino effect, physically and psychologically, that I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know if I'm just going to die in my sleep. Like, it was very traumatic, very, very traumatic for me. My family went through it. My mother, she had to come to Arizona and she's just like, I don't know what's wrong with my son. But I suffered in silence because that's what we do as NFL players. We suffer in silence. I didn't go to the media. I didn't make a big deal out of it. I just said, hey, you know what? I still have to play because I'm a football player and I have to figure this out on my own. Fortunately, I did. But yeah, that was a pretty tough time. Tough time.
Holy shit. Also, beyond that, though, you will be made a little bit crazy by the sleep deprivation, will you not? Like, if you're having panic attacks, if you're exhausted, if you don't know why you can't breathe and breath is the source of life, like, that really sounds like an unbelievable prison, man.
Yeah, I was addicted to Ambien because that was the only thing that would help me sleep. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that go on over a 12-year NFL career to get over 10,000 yards and all of the accolades and statistics. It just doesn't happen because you're just lucky. to accomplish certain things in the NFL, you choose the accomplishment over your health, over your well-being. And that's what I did. And in most times you suffer for it once you're 44, then 50, whether it's CTE, whether it's a hip replacement, whether it's a knee replacement, whether it's liver issues because you've taken so many painkillers and Toradol shots. Yeah, you don't get the acclaim and the mystique of being a 10,000-yard rusher without consequences.
How much were you doing in the name of pain killing? How many Toradol shots? How much Ambien? How much of that were you doing?
It was a routine. It was a routine. It wasn't even. It's not even something that I can like count. It's like concussions. Like when people think concussions, they think, bam, knocked out. That's one form of a concussion. But you know, if I'm playing the Dolphins and I'm just throwing out some football stuff here, you know, it's 200 jet protection. On 200 jet protection, I'm the running back, I'm the H. My job is to block the Mike linebacker to the Sam linebacker to strong safety to strong corner to free safety to weak corner. And I know, and I'm playing the Dolphins, you know, Zach Thomas is lined up in the middle. Zach Thomas is 5'10", 250. No neck, all just shoulders, cowboy collar and helmet. And he can't hold his water. So I know before the snap, he's blitzing full speed. He's not going to run around me. He's not going to jump over me. He's going to try to run through me every time. So I'm already prepared for that. So I've taken Tylenol before the game because I know that I'm going to have a headache once I hit him in that A gap. I also know that I'm probably going to see stars or I'm probably going to see black spots after initial contact. He's probably going to see stars. He's probably going to see black spots after initial contact. I might see two of him after I open my eyes, but I do know that it's 2-minute drill and I have to line back up and I have to listen to the next play and I have to get back in my position and I have to be ready to, if it's 3rd and 2, I need to get to the 2 yards so I can, on a flat route, so I can get the first down. So there's just no time to think of anything that would happen if you bumped your head and you were like, whoa, I don't know, let me sit down, I don't feel good. That's not the life of an NFL player. We know these things. I'm not saying it for people to pity us, but I'm just saying that's part of our reality. And those are things that you don't think about at 24, but they affect you at 44.
Sam Shields is the only football player I've ever asked, would you do it again? And he said, no, I would not do it again. Would Thomas Jones do it all again?
I've been asked that question multiple times, and I've given multiple answers. I've said no the majority of the time. But then I think about the incredible friendships and brotherhood and memories that I have. A lot of people say, well, of course you do it again. It's millions of dollars. You know, yeah, it's a lot of money, but the money we're getting paid is for what we're doing. They're not giving it to us. We're earning that money. I mean, it just comes with the job description. It's a billion-dollar industry. So what we're doing, you know, we're earning the money that we're getting. But the money can't give you a new brain if you have dementia at 40. It can't buy back relationships and friendships and that are broken because of money issues or jealousy. So I always initially say no, but then I look behind me at the artwork that some fans have made, and I look around my office and I'm like, damn, I might even play now again if I could.
You haven't mentioned the brain issue details. What is it that scares you when you think of the effects, the daily effects? Because if your answer is often no, I'm guessing it's because you're living with things at 44 that you did not think you would be living with.
Yeah, just the reality of knowing that I'm 44 and in 5 years, I might not know how to get back home by myself. There's so many guys that are struggling. You don't hear about those stories though. You hear about a few guys here or there, but you don't hear about the hundreds of guys who, and their wives and families who are struggling. Guys who don't even remember. I mean, they can't drive to the store by themselves because they won't remember how to get home. Guys that you know, that you watch play. I was talking to Tony Dorsett in 2012. I did a panel discussion with him on the Bob Costas show. And this is someone I watched as a kid, Tony Dorsett. He's an incredible football player, incredible running back. And just looking at him and talking to him and looking in his eyes and just seeing the fear in his eyes as he was explaining how he can't get back home by himself. He can't go anywhere without having someone come with him because he'll get lost driving back home. Someone that you look at as a superhero, is, that's his reality. Yeah, that's scary. But also I'm at a point now where I know the damage is done. And I wouldn't be surprised if something happened. I'm not surprised anymore. I'm not scared anymore. I just live one day at a time, and whatever happens, it's the consequences of what I did.
Life After is the name of the project. It's 8 parts. It's a docuseries. Prime Video is where you find it. Appreciate the honesty. Appreciate your story. Appreciate your work, Thomas. Thank you for being on with us.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
The Hard Rock Hotel and Casino has announced that February 10th and 11th, there is a double bill. A double bill of music that I believe is now dead.
A twin bill?
A twin bill. But once upon a time, this was music that mattered. And once upon a time, back when you can make an argument that there were rock bands, heavy metal bands, videos were making bands that weren't necessarily good at music be famous at music.
Whitesnake,
Def Leppard, and Motley Crue.
Get out of here. Oh, my God.
And that has to be sad, no?
Sad. Sounds great.
That has to be sad old people mulling about, remembering nostalgia, and I'm just talking about the bands themselves. I'm not even talking about the audience.
You going?
I'm tempted.
I was alerted the other night that Frankie Valli is doing a show at the Hard Rock.
No.
He's 90
Four
years
Seasons?
old. Yeah, Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons.
Yeah, Greg's
And
going.
I was alerted to this because a friend of mine asked that I put on the television to PBS, where he was doing a live show for the PBS audience. And so I watched Frankie Valli sadly walk around a stage at 90 years old, singing the same classics from 1971 for several minutes. I'm like, what am I doing? What is he doing? Why is he still doing shows?
You want him to break out new hits? I mean,
I don't. I want him to do exactly this show. Well, frankly, I want him to lie down on a beach and enjoy the end of his life.
Whoa.
Wow.
How do you find PBS, by the way?
It's on Channel 2.
Oh.
Yeah.
Here in South Florida.
Don't we
It's
have
always
two?
there.
I think we have like a 2 and 17.
Yeah, there's multiple PBS stations down here. But yeah, it's just Channel 2.
How much have you donated over your life to PBS?
I'm actually embarrassed to admit that it's $0.
What?
Wow,
But
you
the
should be
station's
ashamed
run
of
by
yourself.
viewers like you.
I know, but I don't watch a ton of PBS, which is also a source of embarrassment. And I've never donated during a donation drive to PBS.
Do you donate to Wikipedia?
I was just going to ask that.
I have donated. I have donated to
What?
Wikipedia before. Yeah.
How
You're
much?
the one.
How much?
It provides a valuable service in all of our lives, and we should heed the requests for donations because we all.
I click no thanks so fast.
We all use Wikipedia so much in our lives. It is a valuable resource that, out of the goodness of our heart, that we should give $10 to.
I have an idea. It's a little late for this one. Mas LeBatard is coming up, right? It's December 10th. Yeah. Maybe for the next one, all of the money we raise goes to Wikipedia and to PBS.
I like it.
What do you guys think?
I'm in. Two deserving causes.
Yeah, I mean, enough with the animals already, okay? Ron saved the whole thing. He got an animal named after a country or whatever he told us the other day. Like, enough.
Chris Whittingham is the rare 20-year-old who's watching any PBS, I would assume. I don't assume that PBS's demo runs very often in the 20s. But again, getting back to Def Leppard and Motley Crue, having gone back nostalgically and seen Kiss and realized that their voices are shot, that shouting in loud places doesn't make them very good anymore singing musically. You could barely get... I'm watching a band from the 70s and their lead singer can barely get his voice to the parts of the auditorium that he's trying to motivate. When I tell you Def Leppard and Motley Crue, Mike, as a lover of music, as a person who can go back in the Wayback Portal and appreciate the nostalgia of music, at what age are we denying these artists the right to art at 90 years old? If you're Frankie Valli, if you made spring break movies that helped make the Elbow Room famous because they were out there in Fort Lauderdale, Whittingham sounds a bit like an ageist telling Frankie Valli, who allegedly can still hit the notes even though he can't move, telling Frankie Valli, you should stop doing that, you should retire on my time, as Frankie Valli continues to sell tickets.
Def Leppard and Motley Crue co-headlined a stadium tour a couple of months ago. And it was pretty successful from what I heard, but Vince Neil's voice was kind of shot by all accounts. And I think Tommy Lee had to step away at times because he was drumming with a broken rib. Def Leppard, by most accounts I heard, can still kind of go. That stadium tour also had Poison and Joan Jett and the Blackbirds opening up. Wow. Yeah, so they're still worthy headliners. They still bring out big crowds.
It's such a great point, though, Dan, because James Taylor can do what James Taylor does forever. He's not really, he's doing no damage to his throat, to his vocal cords. They're perfect. But when you scream into the microphone for a living, like Motley Crue, and maybe Def Leppard, Pyromania, by the way, one of the great albums of all time. I mean, they are, Mike, they're a one-album wonder. Are they not, Def Leppard? But it's a totally different game in terms of how long you could do it for. James Taylor could do this till the day he dies. I'm not certain Motley Crue should be doing this, and I don't know if Def Leppard should be doing it.
You say the day
Seems
he
like
dies,
a dangerous game.
Motley Crue, it's one of the best rock and roll books I have ever
When
read.
you mentioned James Taylor and Motley Crue, it's kind of funny that James Taylor had the hardcore heroin addiction.
Motley Crue can also be accused, if you've read The Dirt, Confessions of the World's Most Notorious Band, there are a number of deaths that were avoided there barely, and it is a bit of a miracle that Motley Crue can still get out on a stage despite the amount of damage done to every orifice of their body through every addiction known to man.
I will say, I do think that these nostalgia acts like Def Leppard and Motley Crue, the voices of the performers is not really the concern. Really, they're not there to play music. They're there to provide a karaoke track for the crowd. They're there so that the crowd who loves those songs can shout, "Pour some sugar on me" at the very top of their lungs, because that's really why people go to concerts. They go to concerts to shout the lyrics of the songs that they love, and it's really not about them. It's about themselves. It's a very narcissistic act to go to a show like this, because you're not seeing Elton John do his final stadium show at Dodger Stadium, and if you're watching it on HBO Max, it's not like, wow, this is Elton John at the peak of his powers. It's just so that at home you can go, I remember when rock was young. That's the whole point of the act. It's the whole point of the show.
But do you like that? Because I'll go see Pearl Jam and Better Man, right? Eddie Vedder won't sing a single word. The entire audience sings it for him. Do me a favor. I paid to come see Eddie Vedder sing Better Man.
No, you didn't.
Sing it.
You paid so that you can be afforded the opportunity to judgment-free shout the lyrics to Better Man at the top of your lungs.
With Eddie Vedder. Okay, not without him. I mean, he completely goes away the entire song. We're doing his job for him. Pay me.
Artists get mad when we tell them, just play the songs I like, play the songs that are hits, don't play your new music, don't play your artistic creative project, play for me. But when Def Leppard comes out, Rick Allen is no longer with us, correct? The one-armed drummer for Def Leppard, and that was a question I asked. I did not kill him and risk a $50 fine.
We noticed.
He is still with us.
Yeah.
Okay, so I avoid the fine. At what point?
By asking a question.
At what
It's a heavy
point?
play.
At what point, though, does the band not become the band you remember because they are missing pieces to the band, or not every band gets along well enough to continue these tours?
I mean, I love the Grateful Dead. They're without one of their founding members and probably the most famous member of that band, Jerry Garcia, and I'm still loving it.
Well, but
Loving it.
they've created a recreation that has John
Yes.
Mayer in it.
Yeah.
And so they're bringing in a musician that is also very famous. When Journey knocks out their lead singer because they
Great
go
one.
to Korea and they go to a karaoke bar and they find a lead singer who can recreate Steve Perry, and so you're getting Journey's hits. You're getting the songs sung probably better than Steve Perry could sing them at this point, given what these guys and these women do to their voices. But at what point does a famous band from your youth cease being a famous band from your youth because I remove a couple of members?
Journey's new singer is Filipino, but you mentioned that you saw Kiss. Half the band is not the band that you.
But you can't. But as long as Gene Simmons is there,
as long as it's Gene, you're fine, and Paul Stanley, because those are the guys that share the vocals. But Peter Criss and Ace Frehley, I mean, that's 50%, and they were idolized, but they wear the same makeup. It's hard to tell.
But that's how I do it. As long as Bob Weir is standing in the middle of that stage, I'll continue to go see the Grateful Dead. You take Bob Weir out of the equation, done. Because now you're taking Bob and Jerry out of it, and those are the two main singers and the two co-founding members of the band. That's kind of where I draw the line.
Is it the third member then? You could lose the third and the fourth member.
I mean, Peter Criss is a pretty big departure. That's the Catman.
Thank you, Mike.
It was important.
I think I'm with Stugotz on if you give me the first and the second most famous of the people involved, because I don't think you can argue that Gene Simmons is he's the fourth best musician that they had, but he's the famous one. He's the dirtiest one, and so if Kiss is touring, Gene Simmons has to be a part of it.
Well, in the case of the Dead, there were two people singing. It was Jerry and Bobby. So you could take one of those two people away, replace them with Mayer, which they have done, and I'm still fine. So I just need one of those two people to be on stage, and it feels legitimate to me.
I want to ask the question from a different angle as well. Would you avoid the Motley Crue Def Leppard concert just because of how sad the crowd will make you? The crowd of people that are lured like magnets to metal.
Hi, this is Gene Simmons. Ask your sister and your mommy, too. She knows about me. And Dan Levitz, those farm animal pictures I have of you, I promise I won't tell anybody.
I miss that sound.
That is, of course, Gene Simmons being told by our radio producers back then, hey, can you just do a little promo for us? He cut him off and said, I got this. I don't need any help. I don't need any coaching. I've been doing for 20 years, 30 years on radio stations. I come on, I stick out my tongue. We sell $1 million in merch, and I do this.
Hi, this is Gene Simmons. Ask your sister and your mommy, too. She knows about me. And Dan Levitz, those farm animal pictures I have of you, I promise I won't tell anybody. Dan Levitz.
You're talking about the guy in the crowd who's got, you know, the Def Leppard shirt, 3/4 sleeve that he has now cut. It's totally sleeveless. He went to the concerts in the 80s. He still has Pyromania. He still plays it on his record player. You're talking about that guy in the crowd?
Dan Levitz.
Is it going to be a sad crowd? Because it's going to be me in that sad crowd?
Dan Levitz.
There's no way that crowd is fun, right?
Dan Levitz.
There's no way that music is any good.
There are some times where I look at who's coming up at the Hard Rock, not because I intend on going, but because the blackjack afterwards will probably be fun. That'll probably be a night that I'll skip.
Dan Levitz.
I'll skip the Def Leppard Motley Crue
the
night.
blackjack there was great. I went to the canceled Limp Bizkit concert, and everybody was playing blackjack in the red backwards Yankee cap.
Oh, God.
Jane Wallet, Janko G.
1,000 Dursts all over the place.
all hitting on 14s against a 6.
Thousands of people were in backwards red Yankee caps.
You went to the Hard Rock recently to see Adam Sandler as well, did you not?
Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. He, despite calls for him to cancel his friendship with Rob Schneider because of political views, he's still very much Rob Schneider's friend. And it was just a bunch of friends having a good time. And it was a really enjoyable experience. It was that he plays a Chris Farley song, which is super sentimental, and he's an icon. For better or worse, I know he's a pretty polarizing guy, Adam Sandler, but he was, I mean, top 2 names in comedy during his runs. And I don't mean to talk about him like he's in the past. He's still having a thriving career. So
why is he so polarizing? I know a lot of people it's easy to make fun of his movies. He was one of the first people to cash in with Netflix. He has made a lot of bad movies. He has also funded his friendships. He seems to be an extraordinary friend, Stugotz, in that he continues to give the people around him a great deal of work. And Adam Sandler has made a lot of good movies as well. Like there's the crappy dumb stuff, and Adam Sandler has been funny dumb since he was 20 years old.
But he can do some of the indie darling films like Punch Drunk Love and Uncut Gems and
Punch Drunk Love. I will say again, like it is a great movie, not good, and his
phenomenal.
acting performance in it is exceptional.
It's phenomenal. Yesterday, I don't know if you guys saw this, but he accepted an award and he read a speech that he claimed was written by his daughters. And that's what I really enjoyed most outside of the friendship and the nostalgia. Judd Apatow was opening. It was Nick Swardson. It was usual cast of characters. Then I spoke to people that saw him in Savannah, and they said they got a different crew. They got David Spade. He was going into his circle of friends a lot. And it's a really good concert because he's a talented musician. He and his writing partner go throughout all across these genres, and they make ridiculous songs about these topics that are insane to write a song about, but it's really fun and it's good nostalgia. But when he does the baby voice, it takes you back to a certain time. And it's kind of funny that Adam Sandler's a nostalgia act for many at this point, but he dips into that nostalgia a little bit here when reading a speech from his daughters, which is a cool way to experience him because he has a different life experience. Now, this was Adam Sandler at his most charming.
I told my daughters, Sadie and Sonny, who were 16 and 14, I didn't write a speech, and they said phrases like rude and you're mean. And I said, well, Daddy's tired, you know. Daddy works hard, calm down. And they said, all right, we'll write the speech. Will you do the speech in that goofy Southern accent you always do all your dumb speeches in? I said, whatever, we'll give it a shot. So, all right. My daughters wrote this. Let's see how we do. Dear well-dressed dignitaries, highly educated hipsters, and various other plus ones of the Gotham Awards. Thank you for giving our daddy, Mr. Adam Sandler, this prestigious lifetime, all-time, primetime GOAT Achievement Tribute Award, or whatever this frankly disturbing object is supposed to represent. It means a lot to him, seeing as most of the awards on his trophy shelf are shaped like popcorn buckets, blimps, or fake mini Oscars that say Father of the Year, which he sadly purchased himself while wandering in a self-pitying fog through the head shops of Times Square. First off, we would like to begin by apologizing for Daddy's disturbingly unkept beard. He is under the illusion it hides the hamburger grease-covered flesh waves of his triple chin. But to us, it just makes his head look like someone threw black and gray cornflakes on a beanbag. We also wish we could be at tonight's award show with all of you sophisticated people, but Daddy said, and we quote, I don't want to spend a whole night that's supposed to be about me and my greatness listening to you two newly pubertized buffoons screaming, where is Timothy Chalamet? And how can we legally squeeze that fine little Jewish ass of his?
Adam Sandler also can be seen through Times Square in sweats, eating a jar of pickles, walking around.
The Gotham Awards.
Good limited fake Adam
Very
Sandler.
Very good, yes.
What is the strangest thing you could be wandering around Times Square eating from something? Because a jar of pickles is pretty exceptional. I think soup is good too, to just be walking around eating.
That would creep me out.
That was Colin Cowherd. I mean, he would walk around the Bristol campus eating a bowl of soup all the time. Every time I was there.
But was he eating a bowl of soup with a spoon, or was he sipping it out of a coffee mug?
Sipping it right out of the mug.
That is different, though, because I'm imagining the eating of soup.
Walking with a bowl of soup, you're a sociopath. Something's off.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Lebatard Show. If you walk around eating a bowl of soup with a spoon, are you a sociopath or just a fat person?
By the way, AirPods, now that we're talking about this, ruining society.
Why?
Well, because people are always on them, and you don't know that they're on them. Like right now, I just walked past someone who was in the kitchen on AirPods and said, "Hey, how's it going?" And then they just like looked at me and then continued on their conversation that they were having.
Who was it?
It was Billy Corbin, hanging out in the kitchen as he does sometimes, just here in studio all the time, hanging out.
I was watching a video of the U.S. men's national team celebrating after they beat Iran, and they got back to their hotel, and there was a welcoming party for them. And like you said, one of the players had AirPods on. And it's like, if you can't, after winning that game, just be in the moment with your teammates, have a great time, celebrate when you get back to the hotel, and then chuck the AirPods in when you get back into your room, like, just be a person without AirPods for 4 hours.
Maybe that person was talking to, like, maybe the president called him to like congratulate him. Like, hey, great win. You know what I mean?
Did
like,
you see that press conference that Joe Biden was in, by the way?
Yeah, well, I enjoyed the sort of the behind the bit of that, where there's a guy, there's a chief of staff guy who's got like his phone to his ears, like, so we won, so it's over, okay, and then he's like he gets the job of excitedly telling Joe Biden, hey, we won. He's like, no, I'm gonna run on the stage right now and tell everyone, USA, yeah.
That was amazing.
On the flip side, though, now thinking about it, like the pros and cons of AirPods, like the pros is if you're on the other side of it, you could just always have AirPods in even when you're not using them. And then if you're approached by someone you don't want to hear from, you then just nonsensically start having like a conversation with yourself, and they assume like, oh, you're like on a Zoom or on a phone call or whatever.
Right. It's sort of like your way to be simultaneously always available and unavailable. Because if you're available, you just pull the AirPod out, be like, oh yeah. Or you can do the one like the pro ones, which I was very sad to have lost. They have like this setting where you press and hold the right one, and you're either in noise cancellation, or it's sort of like extra hearing what's going on around you.
What?
Like you can sort of like you can eavesdrop on people.
Like those little like ear satellite dishes?
Yes. Like they capture what's around you in even sharper fidelity. So you can kind of like sit in a Starbucks and listen to people if you wanted to.
So hold on.
What?
Like they go from earphones to hearing aids, essentially.
Yes, and like noise canceling earphones.
And would you do that? Would you eavesdrop on people around you?
I would walk around the mall with the eavesdropping setting on, listening to something, but also simultaneously can pause it and maybe tune into a conversation I'm hearing somewhere.
What if you would have heard something that you shouldn't have heard?
Well,
like
I have the excuse of having worn AirPods.
Yeah, but like no, morally, like you heard something like plotting of some kind, or you like
report something to the police.
Like some sort of crime was committed and there was a confession, and you could stop this from becoming an isolated crime to a crime spree. But now you have to admit, I was eavesdropping on everyone with my AirPods. Do you feel the moral obligation to do something about it, or do you just like do the Spider-Man in the first movie where you move out of the way? The criminal gets away, and then boom, Uncle Ben's dead. Spoiler alert.
To be honest, as with many things you sometimes bring up on this program, I hadn't given that any thought. So I was just sort of walking around trying to be a little bit of a gossip.
Yeah,
that's what I was doing. I will readily admit to that. I shouldn't have been doing that, and yet I kind of like the setting. But as I mentioned earlier, I lost those AirPods. And actually, we were discussing earlier this week that there's a review. So there's this website that the New York Times has called Wirecutter, and it's like it's a great place to for reviewing consumer products. Where they give reviews. At some point, we have to get over the sneeze, and I'm just going to power through.
No, you gotta. It's always good when the sneeze makes an appearance.
So they like review products, and so I was looking at Bluetooth headphones, and So they have like a thing where it's like, this is our favorite Bluetooth headphone, and it's whatever brand, and then here are the other ones that we like. And you keep scrolling and scrolling down the article, and you get down to the bottom, it says, we don't really like AirPods that much. We wouldn't recommend that you buy them. And it's kind of like extraordinary for a product that's that popular. And it's the same thing with coffee makers. They do not recommend the Keurig machines because of both the quality of the product and the environmental impact of them. And sort of these things that are massively popular, and they're like, we don't have them. So like we like the idea of like this thing that is sort of ubiquitous in our culture, and yet this website, this entity that presents itself as sort of an authority on products is like, nah, not for us. It's kind of astounding.
What's the best bit of juicy gauze that you got listening, like on your AirPods?
I'm like scared now to be around people with AirPods.
Same.
I didn't know that
The
they
AirPod
could magnify
Pros. It's
sound.
the Pro. It's like the bigger ones. The regular
Like the
skinny thin
over-the-ear ones?
No, like they're sort of bulkier.
How the hell would I examine someone's ear canal long enough to know if they're wearing Pros or
Because
regular
they're
AirPods?
decidedly different. I'm gonna show you a picture of them. Like they are much different than your normal AirPod.
They have the
like the normal AirPods had the skinnier stem, and this
Okay.
one has sort of a bigger base.
Mm.
And so that has a setting where you can flick it on, and you're sort of listening to people around you.
I have a very inefficient way of you determining if people are eavesdropping on you or not, if you'd like it, but it's going to take some effort. Just every time you walk past someone that you suspect might be eavesdropping, insult them. And then see if they can hear what you're saying, like if they react in some way. Like walk by and just be like, stupid blue shirt, you know what I mean? And then see if they like take like a step back, and then you'll know if they can hear what you're saying or not. So just basically insult every stranger you pass that you suspect might be listening to you, and then you'll know if they're listening or not.
You lament at the beginning of this, you lamented the end of civilization because of AirPods, right? The thing that I keep hearing as you guys have this conversation, and the thing that repeats like echo in my life, given how I'm aging out of things, is that we're more connected to devices than we've ever been. And by extension, it feels like with each other, we're more disconnected from each other than we've ever been, because at any point during a glorious celebration of a World Cup triumph, it's easier to just slip in your AirPods than it is to be present.
Yeah, to me, and this is a judgment of mine. If you're doing that for music, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like if you're just so you can listen to music walking around, I sort of would always use AirPods and I always use Bluetooth headphones to catch up on podcasts. And I feel like I'm ingesting information. But like, unless you're some music buff that's just trying to like catch up on all the latest music, the idea that you would just walk around through life just listening to music instead of participating in life just kind of seems strange.
But isn't it actively a decision? It's not even love of music. I've always assumed those people just don't want to be bothered, that they want to be left alone, that they actively are choosing a space where their life can be musical or elsewhere, as opposed to interacting with other human beings.
I'm constantly listening to a podcast just because I need to be hearing information at all times that makes me feel smarter, even though I retain 0% of it.
Has like long lost the era of just sitting at home listening to music? I feel like I'm only listening to music when I'm doing something else. Like I would never just sit down and be like, let's listen to like the new Taylor Swift album and like sit on the couch and talk about it afterwards, you know?
Did people used to do that? You just sit there and listen to something and no one talked?
Like with a record player, right?
so
You just have people
weird.
come
What?
over, you'd play the latest record.
You
and
wouldn't
then-
like clean out your fridge or something while you were listening to it, or like walk around and like do laundry. You just sit there.
Listening to music, just gathered around a record player.
Is that not what people used to do? Yeah, right?
What years are we talking about? 50s, 60s?
1975.
Hmm.
Led Zeppelin 2.
How many channels were there back then?
3 television channels in 75. That's pre-cable, is it not? I think,
Yes.
Isn't the advent of cable at the beginning of the 80s?
Yes. I believe so.
So do any of you just go home and listen to music? Or
Never.
you're always doing something
My
else?
Spotify Wrapped music was like
Oh,
so
God.
unhinged. It was so weird.
It's that season again.
I'm never posting it on social media.
Why are you groaning? People are sending out what they're listening to
Yeah,
all the
this
time.
is what I was listening to on Spotify all year long.
Our fans love to do that.
They do.
one.
I have a question about the metrics on that. Do you guys know this? I'm sure one of you will. So, like, because people are sending us, like, when they listen to us, and thank you. Obviously, you guys don't annoy me. Everyone else does. Everyone that doesn't listen to the show that puts it out. You guys not. You guys are perfect. So, the people that put out, like, listen to 38,000 minutes of this. Is that like minutes of content, or is that minutes they spend listening? So, like, if they're listening on double speed and they only listen to what, like 19,000 minutes?
That's a good question.
Is it how much content they listen to, or how much time they actually spend listening to?
I think it's how many minutes of the show, not accounting for if they listen to it at double speed. So if we put out a 40-minute episode and they listen to a 40-minute episode sped up, it still counts for 40 minutes of listening to the LeBatard Show, even though they might have listened to it in like 25 minutes.
Most people listen at regular speed, no?
I think so.
Really?
I think regular are like 1.2 maybe.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot, like that weird guy you met who did the 3 times speed. That's an abnormality.
Please do not call our most ardent listeners weird as they celebrate
weird, disturbed man.
the loyalty of our audience that is proud of listening for 40,000 minutes or 800 hours.
No, those people are fine.
No,
it's the
not
one
them.
It's the one that listened to it on 3
Other
times
things,
speed.
yeah.
That
No.
guy has something wrong with his ears. I don't know how he can do that.
No, yeah, like over 1.2 makes me nauseous. Like
Yes.
1.5 is too quick.
Woody
I get
does it
dizzy. I
every
need
morning.
to stop. Yeah, it's too fast for me.
Woody, if I ever get a ride home from Woody, his car will be on with like the Bill Simmons podcast going like 2.5 speed, and it honestly makes me want to puke.
He wants to have more information than everyone else, and he wants to be more efficient than
There's no
everyone else.
way. There's no way your brain can process that quick. I'd crash my car, honestly. I couldn't listen to it that quickly. My brain would I'd have like
Just
react and
drive
just crash.
off right off the highway.
Yeah.